Welcome. This is the April 17th meeting of the Bloomfield Township Planning Commission. And if this is your first time here, let me just introduce ourselves. We're the Planning Commission. We are a 7-member appointed body, appointed by the Board of Trustees. We're advisory only. We can make a recommendation to the Board of Trustees, who have the final say. And tonight we have one item on the agenda. It's a site plan for a rooftop addition for an office building that's currently under construction at 4050 Maple Road. It's on the north side of Maple and east side of Telegraph. In order for us to pass any...
Sorry. I was turning it off. Hit the wrong button.
In order for anything to pass here, we need four affirmative votes. We're 7 members, so it has to be a majority. Tonight we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have 6 members here, so we have a quorum, so we can conduct business. And the first item, though, is approval of the minutes from our last meeting.
Jeez, that was embarrassing.
We all had an opportunity to look at it, and
I have looked at it. I move approval.
okay.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Any comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Okay. We're ready to, public comment. First, we do the public comment. There'll be an opportunity, if you're here to talk about the roof addition, there'll be plenty of opportunity for that. This public comment really is for something that's not on that agenda, something else. If you have anything you want to say, we'll have plenty of opportunity to talk about that. So you're not going to be shut out if you don't say something here. Okay, so I don't see anybody jumping up, so we can move on to the first meeting, which is the site plan approval.
Mr. Chairman, this matter came to the Planning Commission a while ago, and I, acting as the general contractor for the project, so I recused myself at the time, so I respectfully recused myself for this portion as well.
Okay, great.
Okay,
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We still have enough members. We have 5 members that can vote on this project. 4 out of the 5 we need to approve or whatever we want to do, if there's a motion. So we're still okay. Okay, so first, Andrea, are you going to present this?
Sure. Hello. Good evening. I'm Andrea Bibby. I am with the Planning Division here at Bloomfield Township, and I'm here to present the proposal this evening. Looking up on your screen here, you can see the property which is before you this evening. It is located at 4050 and 4060 Maple Road. This is for an office building that is currently under construction. We have had an application by property owners Maplewood Office Park LL have submitted a site plan application, and their proposal is specifically for that building that is under construction, that is in the rear of the building at 450 there that you can see up highlighted in the purple and surrounded by red up on your screen. That is the property which we are talking about. The purple indicates that this is a property that is zoned office district, and also providing you a copy, a copy of the aerial. This aerial, you can clearly see at 4060 where the address is, that this is a photograph that occurred prior to construction, because it currently is an active project and it has been erected, the frame of it, and it is currently active. So the specific application before you this evening is the applicant is seeking approval to add an enclosed 3rd floor addition of approximately 935 square feet. Since our ordinance does not have anything that is specific to this type of enclosed occupiable space, we are considered a 3rd story addition, although it is not spanning, as you can see, the entire 3rd floor, if you will, but it is essentially a new, approximately 1,000 square foot of enclosed space, as well as they're asking for a elevator penthouse addition, which is highlighted there on your screen, which is the more of the gray beige brick structure that's included in the that's attached to that enclosed area. And then additionally, they are proposing a enclosed stairwell, which is actually going to be closer to the east property line. And it is to be noted that the east property line does abut up to the I believe it's the Thorncrest subdivision, so it does abut residential immediately to the east. In addition, they are proposing to add an aluminum railing, which is also shown in the elevation, and they are also proposing to add evergreen screening along the rooftop to screen any of the rooftop activity, if you will, from the immediately adjacent residents. The applicant is proposing, there is a letter that's been included within your staff report. The applicant is requesting to use the rooftop from 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. on Sunday. This is an office zoning district, as I stated earlier. So within that office classification, we do not have regulated hours of operation. You may be familiar with when we have hours of operation within a commercial site that we do relegate the time to be between 7 a.m. and 9 p.m. That is not something that our ordinance calls out within the office district. So I just want to point that out. Within the letter that has been provided by the applicant, which is included in the packet, they have indicated there's not going to be any music or additional lighting. There was a conversation as indicated by the Design Review Board, and if you had a chance to review those minutes, they did indicate that there would be any emergency lighting that would be required for the elevator would be included, but they have stated there would be no additional lighting. Additionally, the use of the space itself, which is actually showing you an kind of a bird's eye view on your screen. This is the proposed so if we're looking, this would be the north. This is facing the medical center to the north, and then this would be the Thorncrest subdivision over here to the east. To the south would be the other medical building that has Cura located inside of it. And then along the west property along here would be closer to that bypass. So just to get us an idea of what we're looking at. So the proposal is, in the center here, is that 935 square foot addition, which is the enclosed space. This 10-foot by 10-foot square area right here represents the elevator penthouse. You can see that there is some flat area here along the roof where they're showing the use of some tables and chairs. And then I also want to point out that the center of this area along here, which is a good amount of the space on the roof, is actually going to be occupied by roof-mounted mechanicals, so that will not be able to be accessed from people that may be on the rooftop, as it will be screened accordingly from public view, and it does have to be screened as to not have any access into that area. This over here along the east elevation is the proposed 10-foot high, so it's about 10 feet from the roof of the building upward. It's about approximately 10 feet 2 inches. And then additionally, they also have the row of arborvitaes as shown earlier on the elevation. So within our ordinance, it does speak to height requirements and setback requirements for these type of penthouse elevator structures. It specifically states that the elevator structure itself cannot exceed 15 feet in height. I just want to point out that in this instance, it would be a variance. The applicant is requesting a 16-foot, 2-inch high elevator penthouse, and the reasoning that has been provided for the additional height has to do with some new mechanisms that they use to store. Some of the equipment is actually stored above the elevator as opposed to alongside of it or wherever it's been stored, I guess, previously. The applicant can certainly expand on that, but that has been the explanation in terms of why the elevator penthouse itself is exceeding the permitted height. So that is specifically what I'm referring to when I say the penthouse structure. That is solely just this structure here that houses the penthouse. Additionally, because they are seeking to add that third story, and we're calling it a third story because it does have occupiable space, it is adds to the total gross floor area of the building. So the total, now we've gone from 36 1,025 square feet. Now we're adding on that new square footage, because it's usable space, we have to count it towards parking. So now we're coming up with a total usable space of 36,960. And what that does is it requires 3 additional parking spaces. However, it has been indicated throughout the application, as well as represented by the property owner, that this area on the rooftop is intended to serve the existing tenants that are within the building. So I just wanted to point out that will be a variance that they will have to seek before the zoning board. Is now, by increasing the square footage, they have now shortened themselves 3 parking spaces of what's required. So they'll be seeking a variance for that as well. Additionally, they are going to be seeking a variance as it relates to the setback of the stairwell, as I stated earlier. Although it is 10 feet high, so it doesn't expand, there's no height requirement that we have for the stairwell, but we do have setback requirements that are supposed to be 2 times the height. So since the stairwell itself is approximately 10 feet tall, they're required to be set back 20 feet from the edges. And you can clearly see here along the northerly building's edge and the easterly building's edge, you'll see that the stairwell would encroach into that, so that would require a variance. I just wanted to point out that the stairwell will be entirely enclosed with materials to match the building, so there would not be any activity or visibility from any adjacent neighbors in the stairwell area. There are no other changes that are proposed to the site. No changes to the parking lot or any landscaping that are proposed. And additionally, another variance would be to exceed the permitted height. I just wanted to point out that by adding that 3rd story now, they are going beyond the permitted height within the office zoning district. They are proposing a total of, if you measure it from grade to the very top of this third story, we're measuring it to be about 44 feet and 6 inches. So that does exceed the permitted height within the office district, which is 24 feet. I do want to point out that back in 2019, when the office building itself, which you can actually see highlighted on your screen, this is the approved building that's currently under construction. When this went before the zoning board back in 2019, they were granted a variance to exceed the permitted height by 4 feet. So the building height was at 28 feet with a 3-foot parapet. So that was approved. Other than that, we do have the applicant that is available here to answer any questions about the proposed use of the building, as well as they can touch upon some of the criteria that they had discussed at the design review board. This did go before the design review board at their April 5th meeting. I believe it was April 5th. And it did receive a favorable recommendation. However, at that meeting, there was a lot of discussion regarding the use, the time, any noise that would be associated with this use. So you can see as part of the suggested conditions for which the Planning Commission should consider this evening, as we've provided within your packet, notes that they would have to consider limiting the hours of operation. Well, that's the hours that they've provided, but that will be up for discussion, the hours that they have provided, as I mentioned earlier, as well as limiting any additional lighting, as well as any additional noise or speakers. That would also be something that would be eliminated. So you can see that those recommendations have been provided for consideration, as well as anything that you may hear from the public tonight regarding this item. So with that, I am more than happy to answer any questions, but I also think that the applicant themselves, we do have Brian Nager, he is the property owner, would really also be able to answer any questions regarding the proposal as well.
Okay, anybody have any questions for Andrea? I do. Andrea, can I just ask?
Sure, absolutely.
I'm glad you have this up here. The height of this right here, that building that's on that plan.
Yes.
Is it, and I don't mean the elevator and all that, but the height of the fascia, the
Yep,
front or
sure.
around, is that the same, is that going to change except for the railing that's being put up and the arborvitae? Or-
Correct.
So that stays the same, except the railing is being put on?
That's actually
And
a
the
really good.
arborvitae.
That's a really good question, and I think that actually may be a better answer for the applicant.
wait. Okay.
Because I do believe if you're looking at it, and they have provided an example. It's not in your packet, but they have provided an example of what they're proposing to use as the design for the railing, which is something that they've used on other properties. So this is an example. So perhaps Brian would be able to better answer that question regarding the change. And I believe if you look at the elevation here, it indicates that the fencing would be located on top of the fascia that was
So
previously approved.
that fascia there, that answers it really, because that fascia there is the fascia that was approved on the 2019.
Correct.
Okay, so it's just, like I said, as I said, the railing and the arborvitae.
Correct.
At the edge. I don't mean the elevator. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
That makes sense.
One more for Andrew, please.
Sure.
Sure.
I'm a little confused about the distinction of the description of penthouse. We're zeroing in on the elevator.
Well, it's really, I keep referring to you're right, I'm referring to the elevator penthouse because that's kind of how our ordinance recalls it. But really, it's like the elevator shaft, if you will.
Sure.
Is that part?
Is that part, as we read it for the particular ordinance, the space of the third floor is separate and distinct, and under what part of the ordinance does that fall?
It would be the occupiable space.
Yes.
That would be considered the third story. Because we have no other mechanism to allow for, it'd be one thing if it was just the elevator and then they entered out into the roof.
Right.
But in this instance, because they are asking for that additional square footage of space that can be habitable, we do have to call that out as a third floor. So
So when we're looking at the applicant's request for approval, those are two separate and distinct items, are they not? I mean, obviously, they're conjunctive because you're going to use the elevator to get to the space, but
I mean, technically, you don't have to have one without the other, I guess is what you're asking?
well, I mean, somebody can conceivably have an elevator that goes to the roof and you walk
Yeah.
out onto the roof.
Yeah.
We're adding occupiable space. I'm just trying to see how that,
No, you're absolutely right.
okay.
The way that you've, anything else from anyone from the, yes?
I do for the applicant.
Oh, sure, okay.
Hi. Can you put, Andrew, can you put the part with the mechanicals showing the east side of the proposal?
Sure.
So my question has to do, obviously, with the east side of that. I see the mechanicals. To the right would be to the east where we're overlooking where the subdivision is, correct? So if you look at the mechanicals, between the edge of the right side of the mechanicals to where the arborvitaes are, is that usable, is that proposed to be usable space?
First of all, good evening, everybody. I'm Brian Nager with Nager Companies. Thanks, everybody, for coming out, and thanks for the presentation, Andrea. So, to answer your question, that space there is primarily for egress to the second stairwell. I'm not sure, is there a dimension on there, if we could read it? But it looks like about 15 feet. And that would primarily be used just for, egress in an emergency situation. So,
Okay, because
I guess the main point is that the focus of what we were doing was to try to push everything to the west side, which is where you see sort of where the active area would be. I think that's just going to be sort of an egress mechanism, so.
you did a really attractive design there. My only concern is that if you, and I'll get to the use in a moment, but my only concern is, and I understand people using that to egress and hopefully go to the west side.
Right.
But if you have a use where, I don't know, more than just your tenants, and there's an overflow and people are there, that's a concern. And that is my only concern, to tell you the truth. The west side use of that proposal is fine with me. And we've had other in the township with rooftops like this, and they've worked out really well. And
What I would really like to show, and I think they just pulled it up here, would be the actual colored rendering of what it would look like from that side, so. And that'll give you a perspective of, you know, what you would actually be looking at.
That's the east side?
Yeah.
Okay.
So that's looking from the neighborhood over there, which, you know, I know it might be hard to visualize, but if you imagine those arborvitaes gone and that stairwell gone, you're not going to be staring up at the sky. You're going to be looking at the canopy for the mechanical equipment, which is, I believe, 7 feet high, Keith? So you're really going to be seeing that screen for the mechanicals, which is, you know, basically like aluminum siding almost that just kind of wraps around all of the air conditioning units. So I know this may sound biased, but I actually think that this provides more screening and more privacy than anything, especially with that stairwell there. And then the arborvitaes is an additional screen.
And what kind of use do you expect to have up there?
Well, I guess that would allow me to speak to the ever-changing office market and working from home, and you know, that's sort of a little bit of a challenge with office these days. But I really feel like with this being such a prominent location in Bloomfield, you know, we've owned the property for over 10, 15 years, and you know, I just think that this is a great location. And with the way office is today, people do want to go outside, maybe have their lunch, have a cup of coffee, so things like that. And it adds, you know, a different feel to an office building. So what I had mentioned in the previous meeting was that we're looking at this building not as a short-term solution for what's going on today. This is long-term. This is where I kind of think the evolution of office is happening. More people that may work downtown, let's say you worked in downtown Detroit, you work for GM, you may not want to drive down there every day. You know, post-COVID, people say, okay, well, we have our office down there, we work down there 2 or 3 days a week. They get tired of working from home, so what they have now are things called like Regis and WeWork and things like that, where, okay, GM might have an office in here that you know, supplies office space for 4 to 6 employees. So they may lease a small space in there. You know, this is one of the concepts that we're looking to do in there. It's called Regis, and I'll get into that a little bit more as well. It's basically shared working space. So GM may have a small office in here to serve 4 to 6 people. Those 4 to 6 people live here locally. They use this office a couple of days a week. This is a great amenity for them to, you know, have an office away from home. You go upstairs, you have lunch, you have a cup of coffee. We're obviously limiting this to tenants in the building. This is not something that's going to be rented out for use, and unfortunately, you know, it wouldn't be rented out to residents and things like that. This is for people that are in the building that want to use this as a building amenity, you know, almost like a building gym, if you had a little fitness center in your gym. So it's going to be limited to the people in the building. I'm sure that if there was a special event that we would be required by the city, and we would come, you know, before the city. I've seen it here in other meetings where they come up and they say, here's the special use event, here's the hours, here's the, you know, here's the layout, and that needs special approval. So if there was something like a special event that would go on, we would obviously need or get approval for that before doing it. So again, this is to serve as an amenity to the building, to the tenants of the building.
Okay, and then just a couple other questions. So why, and I understand everything you're saying, it sounds like a good concept, but why are you requesting till 10 p.m.?
Well, we wanted to keep it flexible. People are working late, and you know, we didn't want to have, if one person were out there at 9 o'clock and then we're in violation of the hours. We have looked at other ones that you know, are in the city and they don't have any hours on them. I don't know if that's for everyone, but I know one in particular. So we proposed hours and tried to be flexible. Again, I think there are other ones that don't have any hours attached to them.
And then one other question for now. As far as lighting, I know there's a restriction on lighting.
Mm-hmm.
What about obviously you're going to have some lighting up there, but where do you have them, like architectural lighting attached to the walls or something of that nature?
I think they would be architectural lighting, down lighting only, because you're on a rooftop, and they would only be in areas that are required by code. to get to the ingress and egress exits. So nothing would be lit up. So at 10 o'clock at night, if it's dark out there, there may be some ambient lighting just to get to the exits, but there's not going to be anything else. No music and no additional lighting.
Okay,
So
thank you.
those are some of the things that we discussed at the design review board.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess I'll follow up on that while we were talking about the lighting too. What about what about temporary lighting? Okay, you have an event. Not an event. People want to work outside, and except for maybe July, you can work out till 10 o'clock, but after that, it gets dark. So would you say that you would never allow any temporary lighting to put up just for an event or just for that? Because that would also, it's not permanent, but it would also affect the
I
residents.
think if it were a special event, again, I'm pretty sure we'd be required to come in here and get special approval.
Right, okay, so you would add that temporary lighting to that, okay.
Yeah.
The other question, one of the other things, I have one other question, two other, one of them, do we have an elevation, this same elevation on the originally approved building?
I do not have
Okay.
that available.
Because it looks to me on the floor, the plan, the roof plan, it looks to me like it's the same, the original building, but on the roof, it just pokes through is the stairway. If you,
Yeah, I apologize for not having that, but I'm sure Keith could probably speak to any change from the previous elevation.
Hi.
Nature companies. Yeah, the only change that you would see in the elevation is that additional area.
And the
So all that brick-
The
arborvitaes.
arborvitaes.
oh, yeah, I got that, but
Right.
all that
But
gray brick,
I think what you're referring to is the actual roof line on the east side there. That's the same, and the other side would be the north side. So the east and the north side, the actual roof line is the same.
yeah, I get that.
Excluding
but
the stairwell.
All of that brick, that grayish color brick, was that on the original plan?
Yes.
Oh, it was, okay.
Yeah.
All right, great.
Yeah.
Okay.
All this brick was.
It's just the 10 feet that are added to
You're
that.
just adding up to, but it's what's, okay, good.
Exactly.
The part that's added.
The other thing I wanted to ask about is, not during special events, but when people are just up using it, about cooking up there. Someone bringing a grill out, in the summer and cooking up some food, for people out there. Is that part of the plan or not? Or would that-
That's not part of the plan.
Okay.
No.
All right. Very good. The only reason I asked about was that part of the original building and all that is, I was just wondering if the staircase. Could you put up that the roof plan?
Yeah.
I don't have. Is there one of those pointers? No.
I have a pointer.
Well,
I just want to answer the question earlier
Yeah.
regarding, this is 17 feet. From this line to the edge of the building measures at 17 feet.
okay. All right, so the
17
question
feet,
I-
and you probably have 3 or 4 feet for planter boxes for arborvitaes.
Okay. So what I was kind of getting to, I was looking at before. Push this button here and it does it? Okay. I didn't know if the brick of that facade was on the original plan. I don't see that here. But what would happen, is it possible to take this rectangle and move it to here? So that you do get the setback at least from the resident side. Now, I don't know what the inside of the building is configured as
Right.
now. That's why I'm asking.
I would say that anything's possible, but probably not right now because that staircase is already built.
Oh.
And the layout of the building, that thing goes all the way down to the basement.
Okay, so the staircase was there.
Oh,
You're just
yeah,
adding to that, the staircase
Exactly.
was already approved.
Yes.
Gotcha. I didn't know that. I thought there was a new staircase you were building
No,
to go up there.
no, that's already there.
Adding on.
All right,
You're adding on to the staircase.
Exactly, 10 feet. And that's the only change that you would see from the east side of the building, is an additional 10 feet of staircase and the arborvitaes.
so the staircase that's already there, that went to the second floor inside,
Yes,
and then you're just going up to the second floor, okay.
correct.
All right, and there's no, all right. And so is there any way to put a landing there and move that extended part? No. I'm just trying to see if there's any way to move that extra 10 feet away from right where you need a variance anyway, away from that, right on the edge, get a setback in there.
It would still require a variance on the north side.
On the
then,
north
because
side, right, got it.
we'd have to move it in 20 feet this way and in 20 feet that way.
I
It would
get that.
probably
No,
end
no,
up
I'm
where
just
the-
I'm
The
just concerned
variance
about
for
the
that comes
subdivision.
from the fact that it's being classified as a penthouse structure. The stairway was approved in its current location as a part of the normal course of the building approval because it has no restriction there. It's not impinging on any variance. Below.
Below.
It's only because it's going to the roof
Yeah.
that it becomes
Well,
necessary.
it's going through the roof and an additional
Right.
10 feet. I get that.
Right.
Okay. Well, again, I'm just trying to see if there's any way to move it away from the residences, that's all. That's what I'm looking at, not the north side.
Comment with that, because that stairwell is a block enclosure for fire purposes. So
Okay.
really it's its own envelope.
Okay, got it.
And
Okay.
so it goes all, as Brian said, it goes all the way to the ground.
Yeah.
To move that over.
Okay. All right, that's the only questions I have. Thank you. And you can continue with your presentation, unless you're done.
Just like the other two that we have.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I would just like to state, you know, to everybody that, again, we're in a changing market. We've proposed a Class A office building here. We love the location. We own the building in front as well. We've put in numerous upgrades to that building throughout the years, and we've kept it pretty full. And we're proud of that, and we continue to make improvements on it. We want to build a Class A building here and manage it as a Class A office building. I think this will help tremendously in keeping it full and attracting tenants. And again, the purpose of this, the main point that I want to get across is that this is an amenity for the building. This is not, you know, somebody trying to pull the wool over your eyes and say, we're going to have concerts up here. That's not the point of this thing. This thing is here as an amenity to the office. So imagine yourself working in this building, working in an office. You know, you're there, you come in, you go have a cup of coffee upstairs in the morning. You may have a lunch meeting. You go out there, you might work on your laptop. That's the meaning of this thing. It's not there for, you know, any other sort of purposes. And you know, if there is any special events that ever occur, you know, I would go on record as saying that we'll be here before you and, you know, present that and get approval or whatever is necessary for that to happen. So
just to clarify in my mind, it's considered a third story, and forget about
Right.
aside from the elevator and the stairway, it's a third floor without walls and without a roof.
correct, except for
for the elevator.
exit for the penthouse. So when we
Yeah.
talked about, when we keep saying third floor, I get it, there has to be a name for it.
Part of the
But when
definition,
you
yeah.
come out of the elevator, there has to be somewhere to exit. I don't know if it's possible, it probably is, that you would exit an elevator and just walk out onto the roof. I don't know if it was snowing, I don't know how the equipment works, but I imagine there has to be some type of enclosure. Plus, the original staircase to the west is actually the main staircase for the building. So that one comes up, there has to be a landing where, you know, that's adjoining to the existing office building. Different than the one that's on the east side, which is just a stairwell.
Right, got it.
This one actually connects to the building. So imagine if you're in that office building, you're in the lobby, you walk up 2 flights of stairs, now you walk up the 3rd flight, and you're in some sort of landing. So this enclosure, originally, you know, we did have much larger, and we, you know, through meetings with Andrea and Patty and some planning, and we added trees. We scaled it back from, I don't know, it was probably 3,000 square feet down to 900 and something square feet. We pushed the height down. I think it was 12 feet to match the existing floors. We pushed it down to 10. So in anticipation of some of the things that would come up and getting some feedback, you know, we really did try to consider all these things already and worked with the folks here to try to make this a respectable and Class A project that's going to match Bloomfield Township, the location, the neighborhood, and keep all of that in mind. So that's what we tried for. And again, I think it's 935 square feet. Is there anything in the ordinance,
935,
Andrea,
yeah.
that allows you a certain percentage of the floor space? So the floor plate of the building is about 8,000 square feet, and I think we were allowed about 10% of that or less.
15%. which
15%?
You come way under that.
So that's where we came up with that calculation.
Okay.
So,
Okay, anybody else have any questions?
I just wanted to clarify one thing. The height of the building for the variance for building height, the 44-foot that I mentioned earlier is actually to the top of the penthouse or the elevator shaft, but to the actual rooftop of the, what we're calling that third story, which is that occupiable space, is actually 40 feet. So I just wanted to clarify that. And then I also wanted to clarify that we do have requirements in our ordinance as it pertains to stairwells. The setback requirement as well as maximum height. The maximum height is, cannot be more than 10 feet. In this instance, it's not, so it does comply with the height. So I just wanted to point that out.
Bruce, yeah, go ahead.
So you got to point C, and your write-up that I was confused about and wasn't able to get to you before business closed, that you just brought up, the 10%. So the variance for the height is understandable because the variance for the buildings in that district are 28 feet or whatever, meaning they're two-story. You're allowed, go ahead,
24 feet.
whatever the number is. But the point is to restrict the stories, right? I mean,
To restrict the stories and overall height. I would,
Yes.
yeah.
so you're allowed to apply for a penthouse structure, and we have provisions for that. Under C, we talk about the provision for that, and it's applicable to both the elevator and the third floor. Now, Brian, you just brought up the 15% roof area. And your floor plate is, I'm sorry, how much, 8,000?
7,600?
Okay.
8,000 to just to make the easier math.
So the 15% number you used is the aggregate for your whole. I got it. Okay.
Yes. And that's why we came up with that size, because it
Because
meets
it's
the ordinance.
allowable under that provision.
Correct. And again, we did have it larger to begin with, and then there was pushback in saying, hey, that's, asking for too much, and that's, you're going to need an additional variance. So we wanted to try to minimize the variances necessary and to make sure that it was going to be perceived as a use and amenity for the building as opposed to something else. So,
Which would be exactly the point. If you were going for 3,000 or 4,000 feet, you'd be adding, usable square footage, which is not the point of the variance.
Right. Right.
So you're within the 15%. That's the one variance you don't need.
yes.
Thank you.
Anything else? All right, then, let me open it up to the
Sure.
public for the hearing, for comments. If you have a comment, please come to the podium. We need your name and your address, and we allow 3 minutes per comment. Be my guest. Come to the podium, name and address.
You want to do a timer?
Hi, I'm Larry Bennett. I live at 6494 Thorncrest. It's the first house in on the left. The question, I think my concern is possible noise. So I'm really interested in what a special event would be and what type of request it would be. We're living with the noise coming off of BAC now on a regular basis. I don't want to have evening noise, even if it's one-time special event on that roof. So I would prefer that you can't have a special event, would be my opinion. And I'm sure others would want to ask more about the structure in the back, especially Paul here, who lives right behind that. That's my question.
Oh, okay, thank you. Very good.
Paul Potey, I'm at 6422 Thorncrest. And I'll just make 3 brief comments. I recently purchased this house in 2019, and I did so only after very carefully reviewing the plans, and I relied entirely on the original plan. If I had an idea that this new plan would be the one that would be constructed, I would never have bought the house. So I think you have to understand that township residents make choices based upon the decisions you make. And if we can't rely on those decisions, I think that's a big problem. Secondly, my understanding is this is a buffer zoning that's designed to be adjacent to single-family homes. And I don't know how many of these public viewing decks that you've allowed in this particular zoning category, but I can't imagine anybody in our neighborhood would want to raise their family knowing that you have public viewing decks looming down over their yard or the house. I mean, it's just common sense. I have a, I don't know if you want, can you pass these around? This is a picture from my bedroom window. Again, they're all the same. And you can see that from the window, right at the top of this building, there's some barriers to viewing into the window. Now, if you go up from there and you have a public viewing deck, people can just look right into our bedroom window. That's creepy. That's just creepy. So that's a big problem. And anybody in this area that wants to use their backyard for private family activities, that's not going to happen. Finally, the barrier issue, I wanted to comment on that. There is a fence that borders the back of my yard, and recently a 10-foot section fell down. I think it was the lot over just to the north of this one. But at any rate, it took me 6 months of complaining before I got that 10-foot section repaired. In the meantime, anybody was free to wander into my yard from Telegraph Road. So we talk about putting the little skinny arborvitae trees up there as a barrier. I don't have a lot of faith in that. Thank you.
Are you doing that too?
Hello, I'm Lorraine Goodrich, and I live at 6385 Thorncrest, and my living room overlooks the entire building, and I can see all the way down the building at the 3rd story, and I am very concerned about noise and lights and the 10 o'clock at night, people out there talking, making noise, and I don't feel like they need to be out there till 10 o'clock at night. And if they want to have a party, they'll just ask for a permit. And we see it at the BAC all the time. There's noise from the BAC. There could be noise from there. And it's really hard. We're in our backyards or we're walking around our neighborhood hearing all this noise. So I'm very concerned about setting a precedent for a 3rd floor in that area. Is now the medical office building going to be torn down and build 3 stories also? That really concerns me because I think we have a right to quiet enjoyment of our property. And I've lived there for 35 years. And it's just getting worse and worse. So I really don't want them to be allowed to use it till 10 o'clock. And I don't want them to be able to have permits for special events, noisy events. And I would like more restrictions. And who's going to control it? You know, once they're doing things up there, are we calling the police and complaining? I don't think it can be controlled. Thank you.
Thank you.
How you doing? My name is Marvin Atcho. I live at 6276 Thorncrest. Having a chance to look at the proposed new rendering, you know, driving to and from out of the subdivision, I think it's a beautiful rendering. I would much rather look at, you know, from driving down the street, the roof line with the arborvitaes and the beautiful proposed plan than looking at a canopy and, you know, more industrial look. You know, I think the fresh look of the rendering proposed is probably the best looking thing for the neighborhood. And, you know, I'm a firm believer in supporting developers in our area to beautify the township and make it a more desirable area, as Maple and Telegraph is a little bit older, and I think it needs to be revived like this. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
How's it going? My name's Mike Polari. I live at 4035 Blackthorn. It's the second house in on the right there as you enter the subdivision. I would propose for the gentleman here to propose to request that the setback requirements be met for that staircase. I think, I do agree that the arborvitae look nice. However, right next to those arborvitae's, that big brick wall that's already exceeding the, I believe, the original proposed zoning of the building, which I believe was 24 feet, is what you said? 20 feet was the original?
24 feet is what was permitted, and back in 2019, they were granted a variance for 28 feet and a 3-foot parapet.
Right.
So 28
okay.
plus the 3-foot.
And so now we're going another 10 feet over that? 12 feet?
40, so that was, yeah.
It's a little bit of scope creep, so to speak, right, on that original height, you know? And if, you know, what's not clear with the neighborhood here is it's, you enter in off Maple, and you go uphill, right? So, and, you know, the houses over to the right, they're actually on a hill. They're elevated, right? So it's very visible, that building, and you really will have some exceeded height that, you know, quite frankly, detracts from the value of the homes in the neighborhood, as you're now seeing commercial property in the sub, and you didn't see that 2 years ago before the construction was there. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi.
Hello.
Jill Lorich, 6183 Thorncrest. I live in the furthest back part of the subdivision. We do hear events from BAC quite clearly back there. I'm concerned with the possibility of having events there for not only the noise pollution, but we do deal with, and I've worked with Bloomfield Township Police, parking on our street, clogging the first cul-de-sac, Blackthorn, where my other neighbor just was talking, and covering up mailboxes, driveways. And so have been working with the BAC. They've been great. But I'm assuming that if there's event parking at the BAC and coordinating at the same time an event there, that our streets are going to be clogged with these extra cars because there's no other parking. And I don't want to see that happen. And I think I'd also like to see limits on 10 o'clock at night, Sundays, using of the space. I think we need to have some privacy. We have a nice, quiet neighborhood, and I'd like to see that. I think the building is beautiful. I wish it wasn't so close to those neighbors there.
All right, thank you. Okay.
Good evening. Brian Schuring. I'm at 6330 Thorncrest. My wife and I, Megan. We're the sixth house in on the adjacent to the property we're talking about here. While our neighbor is not, our property is not affected as much, I am concerned. We are directly behind the assisted, it's not assisted living, but the big, I guess, senior living, right, center. And I know one of the big selling points for us was there is a large buffer of trees between our property and their actual, which in the wintertime when the leaves fall off, obviously we can see into there, but we have great privacy. With that being said, the one thing that I didn't notice on the original plan when this first came up even, and I think you can see it here because in the renderings where you see kind of 4060, where the existing site is, there was a large group of trees there too. Once those got removed, it automatically took a buffer away from our whole neighborhood on this side. This is actually adding to that. And so my concern is not so much the events, it is literally the privacy that we have in our backyards that have affected some closer to Maple, much more than ourselves, but definitely will have an effect on my property as well. Now you're talking about 6 houses in that are having this effect. I guess my only recommendation is if it does get approved, if there is a way in that variance that we're talking about, if there's a way to, from the ground up, plant more shrubbery or something to give more of a buffer to everyone. And I would say that's even for the building that exists there now. I mean, you're literally looking into an office building. It doesn't help with value, and it doesn't help for privacy, which is the main concern for us with kids and without kids. I mean, we want to feel at home, and this does take away from some of that feel. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I don't see anybody jumping up. All right, then I'm going to close the public comment for this and bring it back to the commission comments. Or, I don't, although, just let me say one thing before we do. I don't think I heard any questions raised.
Special events, if you want me to touch on that.
Comments about special events.
No, the first
Nobody asked
gentleman
a question
asked
that needs to be answered, but we can talk about we can talk about that. Okay, go ahead.
The first gentleman asked some questions.
There were.
I heard
Yeah.
the comments, but.
Brian, do you mind, because we're going to ask questions of both
Go ahead.
people, right?
Sure.
Okay. So, since we weren't a part of or at least I wasn't a part of the first approval of the original building, can you help me with a couple things? You own the whole property, 4050 to 4060.
Correct.
Is there a screen wall that runs between you and the neighborhood?
Currently, there is a brick screen wall. I think it's a 6-foot high wall. Don't quote me on that, but we're going to pull it up here.
It varies in height because there's topography and so forth. I don't want to get in the back and forth, but does it run all the way down to?
It does. It runs down to the medical village just north of us.
So it traverses your entire property?
Yeah, and from there, I think it jogs out a little bit to the east and then continues down.
Okay, thank you. The second question I had was, on the elevations, your architect denotes material and finishes. The item that he points to on number 17 is your tree, you're calling it an arborvitae. I don't see anywhere in here the word arborvitae. I may have missed it. What I see is a number 17 designation that says decorative planters. It's on the plan elevations. You can just go to the schematic if you want, or the rendering, excuse me. Thank you, Andrea. Either of those will do. So you intend to have live vegetation inside of planters?
Yes. Evergreen.
That's a significant cost and maintenance.
Well, the township will require that it's irrigated.
I understand, but I'm saying, other than some other faux material or other screening, it's a significant expense and care. Okay. So just between us.
Are you opposed to that, or?
No, I think it's pretty extraordinary. I mean, you got to have the planter, you got to irrigate the planter, you got to worry about them freezing, they got to be the right planter, the roof's got to be weighted for it. You got to maintain them consistently.
And they have to be replaced if
they have to be replaced if they deform or die. Oops. There are a number of variances with this that they have to get. Really, our view as I read it and they've presented it is certain aspects of this are allowable. You're allowed penthouse accommodation for mechanicals in excess of that 15%. So as I work through our scenario of approval or endorsement or otherwise, the variances are up for him and the ZBA. It's not for us to determine, right?
Unless you have other comments. I agree with you to some extent, but I think there's a balancing act. It's certainly a balance between the petitioner, which is a beautiful building, it really is attractive, and also the concerns of the residents. And I think we need to do what we can do to balance that out, while at the same time not taking or infringing on your property rights, which are certainly different than the property rights of the residents, but they are both important and they both have to be considered. As far as the noise that will be coming from your building, unless there's a special event, and we have to talk about that again in a minute, but unless there's a special event, I'm not concerned about the noise over there. The BAC is an entity that creates a lot of noise in the summer. I live down the street from there, so I live 6 or 7 houses from there, so I hear it all summer, so I understand. But that's different from what you're going to have over on top of your building. Tell us a little more about what you're considering a special event and what might be proposed in the future. And of course, as you stated several times, any special events would have to be approved by the township.
Right, right. So, good question. I honestly don't have a specific event in mind. That's why, I don't want to, paint myself into a corner. I don't know what may come up, but if it's a special event, it will need to get approved.
Yeah, and I'm
So
not locking you in, just to give an idea.
Give us an example.
If you had a,
Company party?
A company party or a networking event, if we had leased the part of the building to a residential real estate, they may have an after-work networking event up there, from 5 to 7 or whatever it may be. And, if it were something on a larger scale, I'm sure to avoid any kind of disturbance or whatever, that we would pull the proper permits and go to, to a special approval. I would like to pivot and answer a few of the questions that I did hear, because, they're all great comments, and it's understandable that everybody living back there is concerned. Again, Class A building, we want to keep it, a nice office use. Comparisons to the BAC, I don't think is actually fair, because, the BAC is a bar, it's entertainment. There may be some noise pollution from that. That's not what you're going to get over here. There was some comments about the evergreens that had been removed and things like that. We actually went through a tree fund that they have in Bloomfield Township. So we have to, depending on how many trees that were removed, we're replacing. So these renderings don't actually show all of the landscaping that's going to be done on the property as well, which there will be additional landscaping adjacent to that brick wall. So landscaping will be added to that as well. And again, those aren't shown along this whole row there. So that's all going to be replanted with fresh trees and evergreens and some other things. I don't have the exact
And just to interrupt you with that, and my understanding, that is going to have to be presented to the township board if it gets that far, with the renderings for your landscape plan for the wall and whatever else.
Well, that's already on the plan, and it's already been approved, so we've done.
I'm talking, you just said that you're going to include additional landscaping in front of the wall.
Oh, the additional on the rooftop, yes, would be provided, as to what evergreens those are.
Okay.
But along this wall is already landscape planned and approved.
So
I just wanted them
since
to
I don't
be-
see that, and I think it's
I have
important.
a copy of it from 2019.
It's important that we see that, and I think it's important that the residents see that, because it came up, and I think it's an important issue.
I think what Brian's referring to is when this office building was approved as a site plan, as part of that approval was a landscape plan. And I believe because it's under construction currently,
Correct.
that approved landscape plan has yet to be fully executed because they're under construction.
Okay.
But that landscape plan that was approved in 2019 still holds true and absolutely needs to be completed as it was approved.
So that's
demonstrated
a
right there.
pictorial of the
Correct.
final look,
Correct.
what you're saying, right?
That is correct.
Exactly. And again, we go back to, that rooftop. I do believe with the wall there, with the wall for the stairwell and the evergreens up top, that look from the, facing east, there won't be any opportunity for anybody to be looking in a backyard. I mean, that's going to be a complete wall of green and the stairwell. So they're really, I mean, nobody could look back there anyway. So everything was designed in mind to keep the focus towards the west, towards the Maple Telegraph connector.
There's no appliances or cooking apparatuses or restrooms or utility features up there?
No, we didn't even put the restrooms up there as well. That would have been a nice feature to have up there, but again, trying to comply with the 15% rule for the penthouse, we just felt like there was not enough room. It's basically an area to, get off the elevator, exit. The stairwell comes up there, so everything has been, minimized. And again, just stress that this is an amenity for an office building, not a BAC.
I want to go back to something, I think the first or second gentleman, I'm not sure who's brought it up, but the view looking down into the backyards or into the bedrooms or whatever from that roof. Can you put the roof plan back up again? Okay, yeah, very good. All right, now, I see, okay, the door to the stairway is right, this is the door that's coming out of the stairway right here?
Yeah.
Okay, well, what I would ask if could be done, since that's that roof, whole area is a flat plane, tables could be moved, people could walk, meander over there. And the concern about is people at night, especially if there was, up to 10 o'clock, if that's the time, people could look down from up there into the backyards or into the bedrooms or windows. What my suggestion would be is to put a barrier, a fence, I don't know, some decorative thing, like right here. And
I'm sorry, could you, right,
sorry?
Right where?
Well, I suppose here, like this, to block off so that people can't meander and just use this area, make this a usable area. It would be here, the using area would be here, like you said, pushing it toward Maple that way. And
But that's
have
that's
this
the only way
area-
to get up there is through the stairway.
I know, I'm trying to figure this out.
Where the elevator gets you.
With the elevator, that's over
Yeah, but you
here,
can't
right.
block the
But you need to have
emergency
egress to stairway.
right.
But perhaps, if, for instance, if this area that was blocked here and here, then they'd come out and can walk around this way.
Oh.
What I'm trying to figure out is how to keep this area right here, so it wouldn't be occupied, okay? So people wouldn't be in that area. People could come up there and bring a chair, bring a table, bring it over, and then you have, people could see down. That's the concern. But if nobody was using that area between the arborvitaes that are there and that being blocked off, everything is pushed, as you suggest, the other side. And maybe that would help folks that think that looking down from there is looking into their yard. I don't know if you could do that. I would suggest some way to figure that out.
Well, you could bring the arborvitae in and create a narrower walkway, but could you do me a favor?
Well, I'd like to hear his answer first. Just let me hear if there's any comment to what I just asked.
It seems like a decent suggestion, but number one, the main thing is the reason we have that stairwell is for ingress and egress. So you have to have a way to get out in terms of fire. And going back to this drawing, I don't know how we could create any more of a barrier than this. The only thing I could think of is maybe if we turn the corner there a little bit. But that seems as much of a wall as
Yeah. Well, I'm just trying to address their concerns.
Right.
When I look at this, I see there's no way anybody can see down. When I look at this row of arborvitae or whatever is going to be there, it seems to me that's plenty of a barrier. People even sitting at a table there can't see down.
For the visibility and the sound, I think that's really good. I think that you'd probably be hearing noise from telegraph more than you'd be hearing from here. You know what I mean?
I'm just trying to get to answer
Understood.
their comment. No, it wasn't a question, it was a comment, and I'm trying to address that.
Good point, Keith. So in the rendering, those arborvitaes are actually set back 4 feet from the building already.
Okay.
So they're actually pushed in a little bit as well. And that, I think, gets you to line up with the door for the stairwell. If we pushed them in, let's say 8 feet or 10 feet, now you're going to be blocking the door to
Yeah,
the
I
stairwell.
get that.
So
Okay. No, I wasn't even thinking about that.
I wasn't either, but it's just.
I'm just trying to see a way to make that area on that end of the building unoccupiable, okay? So that people wouldn't use it.
Right.
To push them, as you wanted to say, the other way, so. Yes, go ahead.
Can you pull up A103, please?
I'm not sure which image that is. I don't have the full
It's in their
plan.
plan set. It's page 19 of our packet.
Okay. I have a PowerPoint in here. I can pull up the packet. If you just want to give me a second.
Sure. While you're looking, can you go back to the roof plan just for a minute, please?
Well, it's not going to show because I'm on. It's.
Oh, okay.
if you want me to pull up the planning commission packet, I can pull up that. And you said it's on what, it's
page 19. So just hold on there for 1 minute. So, Brian, the arborvitaes show on the right side there.
Right.
I don't see them showing anywhere else on this plan.
No, that's correct. They're on the east side of the building.
So, in the rendering,
They're all over.
they're more than on the east
Yeah,
side.
on both sides.
And on this plan, A103, page 19,
There's probably 200 of them.
Well, you know what, that was actually a mistake, because that was originally when we had the larger area up top. And then when we scaled back the rooftop, I don't think that rendering got revised, and we were asked to provide the rendering from the east side, which was the most important one, and I think that's just a inconsistency. That's incorrect.
okay?
So the arborvitaes are supposed to be right there,
On the east side only.
cover the east side, correct?
Okay, then forget looking for the page I gave
oh, no,
you.
I see it. I see what you're looking at, though.
see
You're
it?
right. There's arborvitaes around the entire thing.
Right.
Yes.
My apologies, because originally that rooftop, the indoor part, curved around the front. So to provide the screening, we also had that up there. And then when we took the rooftop
Yeah,
thing
nice.
from 3,000 square feet down to 900, we just didn't change the
Okay,
rendering to.
Can we go back to the
accommodate.
renderings then?
Yep.
Forget our page.
Sorry about that.
We'll make sure that that's definitely, if this does proceed and move forward, we'll make sure that's definitely addressed and clarified prior to Township Board.
Thank you. I'm sorry to take so much time.
Go ahead.
No,
Bear
all
with-
good.
Bear with me.
All
Let's get
good.
some clarification. So
That's
she's
what your
gonna go to
job,
the
that's your
renderings.
job.
I have one.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I thought you had something else.
I do, yeah.
Go ahead.
I'm just waiting for the renderings. While she's doing that, I'll tee it up for you again.
Okay.
Well done on the comment about the balance, of course. There's two considerations, I think. One is, as our chairman pointed, right there's fine, as our chairman pointed out, the neighbors' concerns about possible visual interaction from somebody up top looking down, or noise interaction. And the second, of course, I'm sure Mr. Burnett will talk about, is the timing. I understand your proposal for use, and frankly, think it's fine, but I think the timing allowances could be modified, certainly from a Sunday standpoint.
How did you know where I was going?
Family evening standpoint, those seem to be reasonable requests from your neighbors. So I just wanted to call your attention to the east side I see, but on the south side, and even partially on the west, I see other vegetation and planters and trees. Are those not?
On the south side, no, those are incorrect.
Okay.
Again, those were used from the previous
One. All right,
yeah.
so it's the east side.
It's the east side.
All right, I'm sorry, one more time for me. If you go back to the roof plan.
Sure.
To our chairman's point, and I don't want to get into the design, but there is a way for you to narrow up that corridor to the door to make it so tables couldn't be set. Your access to your mechanical garden could be anywhere, so you don't have to have a double corridor there. But I'm not suggesting design, I'm just suggesting outcomes. Thank you.
Okay, as John just mentioned, my concerns going back to the balance with the residents has to do with the time in the evening. I think 10 p.m. is too late, especially since it backs up to a residential area. I would be much more comfortable in approving this if it were 9 p.m., and no use on Sunday. With that, I could certainly support this.
I would support that thought, and I also think that lighting should be horizontal rather than, lighting up the whole neighborhood. So
There's no lighting.
There is no lighting.
No, there is no lighting.
No lighting proposed.
no lighting at all?
Just for
Well, he's got
egress.
down lights.
Down lighting, yeah, well,
That's-
that's, I guess my point is that to try to make it more subdued rather than lighting up the whole neighborhood, no matter how they look at it when it's finally done, in order to try to contend with the residential neighbors who have appropriate concerns,
My understanding is and you can address it, the only lighting really is for acts so they know where the elevators and the stairs are, but go ahead. These are down lights that homes are not going to see.
Right, just for, code purposes, so that we would have the minimum required.
As far as the timing's concerned, you said 9 o'clock, which I think that's fine. But in a practical sense, the only time that roof, without lighting, that could be used, basically, would be in the beginning of July to 10 o'clock, because after that it gets dark and there's no lighting.
Right.
So, but I get that. But to say that that's if someone would say, well, 9 o'clock, that's too restrictive. Well, again, it's only for a few weeks or a month where you could use it till 10 o'clock at night without lighting anyway.
Right.
So 9 o'clock is not a problem, really. And then, so I think what you said works.
Well, unless there's any other comments, I'm ready to make a motion.
Go ahead.
I'm ready to make a motion that,
Could I chime in?
sure.
I follow the logic of that use till 9 o'clock, and I think that's acceptable. And I appreciate the comments, and I think that's, maybe meeting halfway on some things. Again, well, I guess I won't mention any other ones, but other developments might not have those same restrictions. So I'd be agreeable to 9 o'clock. On Sunday, though, to just not have it accessible, I think it should still be accessible on Sunday, following that same kind of format. Again, it's an office use. I work on Sunday. I'm sure there's going to be other people in the building that work on Sunday. And to try to restrict it or police it on just a Sunday, I would like it to be open on a Sunday as well. So maybe we come up with, 9 o'clock as well on Sunday. Or actually, it was 8 o'clock before. Maybe we scale it back to 6, 6 p.m.
On Sunday, you mean?
Yeah.
Sunday was already reduced time, is what he's saying.
Yep. It was reduced to 8.
Instead of having 10 o'clock, we reduced it already on Sunday to 8 to completely close it. I think is.
Just think about the use, barring a special event. I'm talking about just normal use. If someone's working on a Sunday, if a few people go up there, 2 people or a few people that are working Sunday want to sit outside, is that any worse than my neighbor sits out on his patio?
No.
I don't know. I guess I see your point. I think that's a valid point. And again, forget about special events with parties. I'm not talking just how many people are going to be in that building, and if somebody wants to sit up and have a coffee and work on his laptop, it's no worse than your neighbor, sitting outside in his yard either. So.
How many people do you envision, on average, being up in that facility well, certainly they're not going to be out there in January, February, I wouldn't assume.
Right.
Unless somebody likes to be freezing.
I mean, on average,
shovel the snow.
On average, during the nice 4 or 5 months out of the summer, I'd say there might be 6 people up there at a time.
Right. You have seating for 24.
Okay.
In your plan.
6 or 8 people. What's that?
That's not networking, 6 people. If you're proposing.
Okay, well,
Wait,
no,
first of all,
no.
the networking thing you saw was a special event, not normal.
I'm talking about
Yeah, I know.
2 floor plates of about 7,000 or 8,000 square feet. You could have 2 companies. Half of that building may be leased out to medical anyway. We are allowed medical in there, and our first choice is to have the first floor leased to medical. So we're talking to a dermatology group, and obviously medical is a nicer, not a nicer use, but a higher use, higher rents, more stability. You get a medical group in there. So we're allowed 50% of this building to be medical. So that is our first choice. The second floor is probably going to be more of the shared office space. We are contemplating doing the Regis in there, which is, shared co-working. But we certainly want to take advantage of a first floor medical tenant. So, doctor's office, dermatology, could be a orthopedic group. They may have nurses or PAs going up there. That's where I'm getting at the 6, 8 people at a time. That's what I envision. I mean, I don't envision 30 people up there during the day and during working hours. Nobody wants to go to work anyway right now. I mean,
We should make it Saturday.
No.
I'm kidding.
Okay, I'm ready to make a motion. I'm going to make a motion. Okay, so I'm making a motion that we have a favorable recommendation to move this on to the Township Board for consideration. So based upon the review of the plans as submitted, it's recommended that we, as the Planning Commission, consider under what conditions the site plan approval may be granted for rooftop additions proposed for the building currently under construction at 4060 Maple Road, subject to the following: compliance with the recommendations of the Township departments, seeking approval of the Zoning Board of Appeals, hours of operations to be from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday, and 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday. No music or loudspeakers, no additional lighting. Application for any future special events that extend the hours of operation must be approved by the Design Review Board.
Question. We originally said 9 o'clock. You're changing it to 8?
I'm sorry, I was looking over here. 9 o'clock, excuse me. Make that 9 o'clock. Thank you.
I'm sorry, can you clarify that?
Yes, so 8 a.m. to 9 p.m. Monday through Saturday, 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. on Sunday.
Thank you.
Yep.
Second.
No, it was 6 p.m.
Second? All right, any discussion on the motion?
It was 6 p.m. on Sunday.
No, 5.
Was it 5? All right.
Okay, any more discussion on that motion?
I'll second it.
No, he already did.
Oh,
so-
you can second it? I'll support it.
Okay, good.
I'll third it.
Third it, fourth it? Okay, the motion has been moved and seconded, no further discussion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, motion carries.
thank you.
Thank you very much. And thank you all for your
Thank you.
comments. Thank you very much. Okay, now, back to the board. Any items not on the agenda that anybody wants to bring up? Okay? Oh,
Well,
yeah?
I don't know the history of the board as much as some of you, but when do we typically get the packets?
Thursday.
Yeah.
Online.
And the offices are closed on Friday.
We send packets out the Thursday before the meeting,
Yeah.
and we don't usually send them out anymore. Are you hooked up to the email notification?
Yeah, I get the notification.
Okay.
I'm just wondering, we can't get them a little earlier? It's a little hard for me. I don't.
It's up for discussion.
Open until the weekend, and then there's not a lot of time to call and ask questions. I don't like coming here and unveiling a bunch
It's
of
up for
questions. I like to
discussion.
call ahead of time.
I don't know what the
What's the
history's been.
cutoff for when you allow somebody to come to a meeting?
When?
An applicant?
Yes.
They have to have a complete site plan. Everything has to be reviewed and endorsed by our various departments. So it's not a defined time frame.
Well, when's the agenda completed for the meeting?
When the agenda is posted the Thursday before the meeting, but if there's some sort of a recommendation to change that or consideration, we could certainly take a look at that if you feel like there'd be a better timing.
I'm just used to getting board packets about a week ahead.
I know the Board of Trustees, we get ours Thursday. Design Review
Hold on a
Board,
second.
I think, gets it the
Folks,
day before.
hey, folks, we're still meeting. Please. Okay, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, so the Board of Trustees, we get ours on Thursday. And then the Design Review Board, is it on Tuesday?
Tuesday.
So the day before. Zoning Board is on Thursdays,
Correct.
correct? So.
What are the trustee meetings? Sorry. I don't
Monday.
know. Monday. Well, just a thought.
Well, I suppose, as Andrea said, if you want to request it
Yeah, I
earlier,
mean-
ask them, maybe they can do it, maybe they can't.
I don't want to be a new pest.
Why not?
You're not being a pest.
I don't want
if
to
you
change
feel it's
the. I don't want
important,
to
We
change
appreciate your input.
I don't want to change the protocols.
No, if it's something that's doable, it's,
Yeah, I mean, we
You've
certainly
got a lot
can.
of-
about it.
You've got a lot of insight into this building part that some of us don't, you and Richie, basically.
Well, on other boards, and you've served for a long time, the idea is to get it out ahead of time so you can ask staff the questions that you need to inform yourself.
Oh, I see because you want to come be able to, that makes sense.
So
I
I
understand what
get
you're
it,
saying.
and I don't
get
open it up until Saturday. okay?
Yeah.
Maybe Friday.
Yeah.
You're not here Friday. Monday's a tough day for everybody. By the time I'm thinking about it,
Yeah.
it's 4 o'clock.
It's the meeting.
It's a tight time.
You can certainly.
As an applicant, whenever we're applying, we're 30, 60 days out. We know what meeting we're going to be on 60 days ahead of time, and most of our applications have to be totally fulfilled 30 days ahead of time. But
It's certainly something that we could work towards and consider. I mean, we are the ones that post it, so I'm keeping that in mind and hearing your input. I appreciate that, and that it makes sense, and I can understand where you're coming from, because having that, if you're not getting it until 5 o'clock or 4 o'clock on a Thursday, then you're not even going to have an opportunity to call or maybe ask questions.
I read this one coming back on the plane. This one was a little confusing because of all the variances. The first thing I had to get over was you're allowed to apply for the penthouse, and it doesn't discriminate the penthouse's use. Because ordinarily, if it's 28 feet and you're allowed a penthouse, you can't use that penthouse for parties, for usable space. It's a mechanical apparatus. But our ordinance, and I tried to look it up today, which is why I asked the question to begin with, does not distinguish the use.
Right.
So they're getting a 3rd floor of use underneath the penthouse ordinance. That was confounding.
No, I want to clarify that. That's not the case. We've definitely broken apart the occupiable space as the 3rd story and the penthouse are separate. They're meant to be separate.
I'm using the term penthouse because it was interchangeable in the report, but they are getting X number of feet of use in addition to an outside area.
That is correct.
I didn't want to ask, what material is the floor that people will be walking on? Is that going to make a lot? Is that going to make a lot of noise?
It's concrete pedestals.
Got to cover it with
I'm
something.
sorry, what is it?
It's concrete pavers.
Oh, pavers, okay. So is that going to be like really loud? I didn't want to bring it up.
I don't know the sound of. I think the builders that are involved would probably answer that question better than I can.
How many people are going to be using that?
Not yet.
Richie, what's the floor made
Going to
out
be
of?
marble?
Walk on upstairs.
It's going to be porcelain tile. And
Porcelain tile?
It's on pedestals so the water could drain through it.
That's what he said. Okay.
He's going to show me how to do it, too.
Yeah, I guess.
Do you see my point about the 3rd floor?
is-
If
what
they had
else-
come in with that in the original plan, I don't think they would have got it.
They might have, because there is a building on Telegraph that came in with that plan originally, and it was approved.
Because of that penthouse.
Was it Jim's?
It came back. That did come back after the fact, just like this one.
Allison's?
Yeah.
That's the one I'm thinking of.
Yeah.
Right.
The difference with that one is that there's no usable occupiable space. There's literally, from what I understand, just kind of an area that you walk into, and then
There's a vestibule.
it's not a larger. But when you're looking at 900, some square feet, you have to look at it
Got
as
a
more
nice
than just a
garden
vestibule.
up there, and
Yeah.
it has
Yeah,
great.
but it is great, but it's a vestibule to the elevator.
Right.
So, well, I'll read the ordinance again. I beat it to death.
You can always give me a call.
Richie, we approved it, except you can't have anything to do with the 3rd floor.
No cigars and wine.
And the 3rd floor needs to be completely carpeted, so
We
it's
didn't
nice
talk
and
about
quiet.
that, so it's open. It's open.
It's open.
It's open.
I didn't bring it up for that reason.
I know, that was smart.
Let's get back. We still want,
That was smart.
Well, that's part of it.
the next planning commission meeting will be Monday, May 1.
Do you have an agenda item as of now?
I don't think we're going to, actually.
Okay, the only reason I ask is future planning. That's all. I'm here if you need me.
You don't think there will be any?
I don't think there's going to be a meeting May 1st.
Okay.
Okay.
We don't have anything that's ready to go quite yet. But there's plenty to come. We're
Anybody
busy.
have anything else?
I want to put a walkable rooftop on Hillside. Well, ABC now, sorry. Richie, why didn't we do that?
We didn't have a stairway.
It's true.
The other one down on Telegraph was approved.
The one that has like kind of the balcony?
Yeah.
That's a little bit. That's the one that's closer to
Yes. See,
Evola.
right.
That does have like a.
That was
You're
a
right. They do have like a. It's not on top of the roof. it's more of kind of the back area.
Right.
There's an overlook kind of area.
Yeah, that's the one I voted against.
That's a bad
Well, the only thing is that he brought, somebody
No, I
else.
understand
he
now
brought it
why
up,
there was
that there were others that did this, that, and the other thing, but, you know, I didn't want to say anything then, just let it go.
doesn't mean anything.
It doesn't mean anything, because
Right.
this is non-precedential.
Correct.
None of, you're correct.
But I didn't bring it,
No.
it didn't need to be done.
As is the ZBA,
Sorry?
as are the variances.
Right.
you'll have to
The
get from
ZBA, yeah.
Nothing beforehand makes any difference. You could have 100 of them,
Right.
but I don't want, we think yours is, you can do that. It's non-precedential.
That's right.
Anybody have anything else?
No.
By the way, just to make sure we follow up, that the right plans go with the application to ZBA and march on.
Absolutely, and thank you for pointing that out.
Because even the rendering was wrong.
No, I appreciate that. It'll be corrected.
That's when you looked at me
Yeah.
and asked me about the planners, and I'm thinking, shit, he's got 200 freaking trees.
Right.
There's like $3,000 a pop between the planter, the irrigation, and the tree.
That's it.
Right.
He's got more in the planners than the building.
But you know what? We would say, that's their problem, right?
Well, it's only a problem if he's
puts it in the-
obligated to it.
Yeah, right. If he's obligated, he puts that on there and he's obligated, it's not up to us to decide how expensive it is or how that's what he asked for.
No, but I'm
You know.
doing the math. But it's only
crazy.
on the east side.
Right.
That's right.
Right.
So somebody smarter than me, because we didn't bring it up, and talk about the height of those.
Yeah,
height of the
very,
arcs?
height's really important on those.
I'm
yes.
going to verify that and make sure it's clearly presented to the township board.
Well, that's.
Are they
the height-
3-foot
well, the height is
arborvitaes
out.
or are they 8-foot
They
arborvitaes?
should be sixes.
And the other thing too, Andrea,
Because it'll be in the
if you
plan,
can
6.5.
go back to the 2019 landscape plan for the wall when that's presented to the board.
I already picked up on that.
Thank you, because I need to look at that.
Yeah, because I looked at it, but
Yeah.
I couldn't see the height.
That's going to be important.
Understood.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'd send it to Dool and let him weigh in on it.
Well, we usually have.
He did.
He does anyway. Yeah, he's our landscape.
right.
Yeah.
We need a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
It's moved, and everybody seconds it, so we're adjourned.
Second and third.
Oh, Neil, I just want to ask
Where
you.
you put it, I just-